Good evening, everyone. My name is Harrison, and I'm the engineering manager for a company called Aviata, and we'll talk about that. But one of our products is Cogswell, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. Aviata is centered in San Francisco, and our development office is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I flew out especially just for this. So Jerry's one of our employees, and she works here, and she's the one who set this up. So it's good to be here today. I kind of got the feeling, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I kind of got the feeling that most of the people here were more hardware-oriented style people.
Software, baby.
So some people are software. So anyway, I kind of made some assumptions when I put together my presentation about how much people knew about IoT and IoT platforms, because that's what I'm going to be talking about today, especially on the software side. So my presentation is going to jump around a bit just because I want to cover some background just to make sure that people, that I don't lose anyone. All right, so who is Aviata? Well, Aviata kind of got started by doing in-product communication. So we have a suite of products called PowerEngage, and PowerEngage is software that gets installed on some of our customers' machines or devices, or their customers' machines or devices, to be more specific. And we partner with consumer electronic companies. And so they pre-install our software maybe as part of their driver set that's on a DVD or something that you would download off the web. Or in some cases, when we partner with computer manufacturers, then our software gets pre-installed on the OS, and right out the gate, our software's there. So as you can see from the slide, we have a couple different things we do. Primarily, at least what we talk about most of the time, is product registration. So I'm just going to give some background, even though this isn't really IoT. We're headed in that direction, and you'll see the connection briefly. So we do product registrations. Our customers see a lot of value from product registration. On average, they see something like $50 to $150 in value per registration. So whenever someone registers a device and they have that contact info, they're able to do upsells and things of this nature, and so that brings a lot of value to them. In doing in-product communication, where it's presented to the user, you don't have to go fill out a postcard, you don't have to respond to an email, it's presented directly to your face on the device that you're working with, we see significantly higher response rates that way. Some of our customers see in the vicinity of 50–60% response rates, which is quite exceptional. If we went back a few years, we talk about postcard registration rates. They're pretty dismal, like maybe 1 or 2% or something along those lines. So our customers see a lot of value through our existing suite of software, PowerEngage. Of course, it has the ability to do things like surveys and be able to push some marketing content to their end users, perhaps around warranties or things of that nature. Also helps out with loyalty programs. So these are some of our existing customers that we serve. They have our product integrated with some of their product lines. Of course, these companies are all really large companies with many different departments, and so we may be working with some departments, not other departments. So what is PowerEngage? I already kind of went through what PowerEngage is, so I'm going to actually move beyond the slide. But it gets rave reviews, apparently. So this is from a website called shouldIremove.com. I'm sure you guys have computers and are like, oh, what is this process that's running my computer? Is it bad? Do I have a virus? Should I remove it? So apparently, our Lenovo PowerEngage product, which is pre-installed on some Lenovo machines, has pretty good reviews from shouldIremove.com. Anyway, I thought it was pretty funny. We found this tonight just before we headed out for this presentation. So I'm encouraged to see that most people don't remove it, since it brings value to our customers. So something about PowerEngage, here's some of the numbers behind PowerEngage, and this is going to start to lead us towards big data, which is going to start to lead us towards IoT. And so this is sort of some of the stuff that we have with our customers right now. our software is deployed to around 10 million plus. That's just a rough estimate. Machines, it could be more. I didn't take the time to do some really hardcore number crunching before I flew out. Just had some guy run some queries to try to pull up some estimates for this presentation. These devices, our software checks in with our servers every day to see if there's any content to deliver to the end users, whether that be registration or whether that be, hey, your warranty is going to expire, do you want to renew your warranty, or maybe you've had your computer for a while. Let's serve up some sort of survey to see how we can improve the customer experience or how we're doing as a company. And since specifically, most of our customers use our registration line. We see on the order of tens of thousands of registrations a day. So anyway, those are just some numbers to give you guys an idea. So with our existing customers, some of them have some requirements or some needs that they're wanting from us. Since the app only checks in periodically, there's no way to do real-time feeds to the app. So that's something that some of our customers we've been in talks about and something that interests them. For everything that gets delivered to our customers, we call that a campaign, which is kind of a marketing term, right? But we set up these campaigns, and this is all kind of like hard-coded. It's not something that our customers can change. They have to go through us to change these campaigns. And also the content, just due to the nature of the technology that is used, the content that gets delivered to end users themselves also is very custom, and we have to build that in-house instead of our customers, having a web development team and building out their own registration page, and they want us to use that. So that's something that, again, some of our customers have said that they desire. More robust rules. And even though they haven't requested this, it's kind of an internal thing, and that is a more modern technology stack. This product's been around for quite a while, and software, like I imagine probably hardware, software moves at a lightning fast pace. Technology kind of becomes outdated pretty quickly. It's pretty incredible. So, this need kind of got developed, and we're like, how can we handle these sort of things? Provide real time, handle it when you have millions of devices checking in every day, communicating with our servers, but then we need to push content out to all these different individual devices that are segmented by our different customers. It kind of turns into sort of a big data problem. If you're not tackling it from a big data perspective, then you're not going to be able to handle the real-time portion of that. It's going to be slow, things are not going to go right, you could just completely fail. Fortunately, software's come a long ways in more recent time, and of course a lot of this has kind of been driven by some big pioneers like Google and Facebook, because those companies have had to solve these big data problems. They had these big data problems before really anyone else did, right? And so they pioneered, they developed some tools, they developed some technologies that fortunately we're able to follow along the heels of and use to help solve some of these big data problems. So we handle these things in real time. So that kind of led us to start to develop what I'm going to call like our next generation version. We wanted it to be a self-serve solution. We wanted it to be something that our customers could log into a web console and they could set up their campaigns themselves. They could say, here's the rules when I want to show this content to our user. They get to choose that themselves without any coding. So like one of their marketing departments could do it. We're often talking to our marketing to their marketing type people. So they tend not to be super technical, although that can vary depending upon the customer. And we wanted to give them the ability to choose the content. Maybe they already have some existing content from other product lines that they have that they want to share with us. We want to give them greater capability for them to control the conditions that their content is delivered to their customers. And like everything that comes to IoT, I will mention, when it comes to all this, more data is powerful. Having the ability to receive more data, you can make much more intelligent, much more smarter decisions. And so with this platform, with these kind of concepts in mind, we set out to build a new sort of platform that would be a development platform so that their developers could integrate it very easily and set up their own campaigns, set up their own sort of rules, set up their own messaging, this sort of content, and have it be all happen in real time and scale to millions of devices. So this is the transition over into IoT. So we built this platform, which is Cogswell, and we're going to go get into that. So we built this platform, and probably about midway through development, I was realizing, hey, we could do, our president, we were strategizing, talking about all the different things that are happening, and I was like, we were hearing about our IoT and some conference and talking, and I'm like, well, Cogs for short is what we call it. Cogs can do that, right? And Cogs can do this, and Cogs can do that, and so we built this really powerful platform. So Cogs is an IoT development platform, but it can also do things outside of the kind of IoT sort of narrative, if you will. So at this point, just so that I can talk about IoT platforms and I'm not leaving people behind, I included some slides at the very end from a previous presentation that we're just going to go through very quickly just to try to catch people up. So, pretty sure hopefully everyone here, knows about this sort of thing, but this is talking about the growth of IoT and the number of devices out in the world and how fast it is growing. It is growing at an alarming rate, alarming in a good way, though. So, as demonstrated by this diagram. So, sometime in 2008, the number of internet-connected things in the world outnumbered the number of people, and as you can see, that is just going to continue to grow and grow and grow. This is basically another chart that also shows that growth of things. Some of these lines represent, at the bottom, laptops or smartphones or tablets, and then here we see in the green, Internet of Things. You can see it by date. Some of this data comes from Gartner. So there's a lot at stake here. IoT is exploding. I'm sure everyone hears about that and all the money that could potentially be involved. So now I just want to jump into reference architecture. So how does IoT work behind the scenes? How does it tie into hardware? What part does Cogs or a development IoT platform have to play in this? Excuse me. So you have all these devices, which Gabriel went over. I'm not a hardware guy by any stretch of the means. I took some classes on it in college when I got my CS degree, but that was a long time ago. And so I was actually really amazed by all the different switches and connectors, all the different things that Gabriel went over. It's so broad and deep. It was really good for me to see that. But as you can see, there's tons of different hardware out there that can do lots of different things that generate data, right? So a switch turning on to off, that's generating data. A sensor, of course, temperature, all these things to be the go-to, is generating data. And so with IoT, and now we could get all these things connected to the internet, and now we have tools to be able to process this data in real time, very quickly. We could start to make intelligent decisions about what's going on. And the more data you bring, the better it gets, right? So let's say I had a warehouse, and maybe traditionally, I'm not like a warehouse expert or anything, but maybe warehouses only had one temperature sensor, one thermometer type thing to control the AC. Certainly I've worked at workplaces that, in one part of the building it's really, really hot, and in another part it's really cold, and it's really frustrating they can't get that sort of stuff straightened out. So with, IoT, or maybe not necessarily IoT, but as you bring more data, right, as you add more sensors, now you can get better coverage in that building, and now you can intelligently maybe turn AC on to only parts of the buildings, maybe heating in another, maybe the building design wasn't great or something along those lines. So then you can start to more evenly cool the occupants of that building. And then, of course, applications with this could go into food transport, right? So, these semi-trucks, maybe, again, they only have one sensor. They're not able to detect that the food that's over in the opposite corner of the truck is getting too hot, and now you're starting to have spoilage. So again, more data. More data is the key. With more data, you can make more intelligent decisions. So, all right, back to my reference architecture. By the way, I'm going to be repeating a couple of these themes a couple times because I feel like they're really important. So you have all these devices that are connected to the internet, and we'll talk about how they get connected to the internet. Not all of them are directly connected to the internet, as I'm sure you guys know, but they generate data. Typically, at the point that they connect to the internet, this sort of data is called event data because it represents some sort of data from sensors or from conglomerate of sensors and then it's dated, so time series event data. And then you want to do something with that data to produce actionable results, to produce something that hopefully makes you money or saves you money. And so that's where we have the IoT service comes in place. So this event data gets passed into an IoT service that then processes the data in real time, can make intelligent decisions about the data, maybe does some data aggregation as well. And when it makes those decisions in real time, then it's able to push messages out to perhaps other systems. They could be visualization tools, they could be some sort of dashboard, they could be for controlling other IoT devices, shutting a door, or something along those lines, alerting a team of people, sending out SMS messages. So, IoT services, IoT platforms, IoT development platforms really is kind of the glue in the middle of all this that makes this all work. If you're talking about end-to-end IoT product, especially consumer-facing, or someone's interacting, receiving that on the end and taking some sort of action, then they have to have this IoT development platform in place. They could have built it themselves, or they could go find an existing IoT platform like what we have. So things have grown very rapidly. There's something like 300 of these platforms out there now, and they've all popped up very, very quickly. This is just kind of a dive into when we're talking about devices, how devices kind of, at least from the abstract software engineering world of things, we think of this, right? So you have devices with the different sensors, actuators, switch, whatnot. These talk to some sort of controller, typically over some sort of short haul communication method, which could then talk to an agent again over some sort of low energy use short haul communication. Sometimes these agents, controllers are all bound together in the same physical device, or they may not be. I was blown away by that switch that Gabriel demoed. So they could be using, this sort of short haul communication technology to pass this data around. And then eventually, at some point, we have these things called IoT gateways, which are then internet connected, and then that's how you feed the data up to the cloud to get processed and then take some sort of action arguably. So often these devices, batteries like a big thing, power's a big thing, and then cost is a big thing. You don't want to build out all these devices that have microprocessors on them, because that takes energy, and maybe you don't have an energy source right there. Maybe you just have a battery, and you're going to burn through your battery really quickly. And so that's why you have this need for shipping this data elsewhere, often to the cloud. So anyway, that's kind of the really quick 2,000-foot view of IoT and IoT platforms and development platforms and where that fits. So hopefully that all made sense to everyone, and we're going to jump into talking about Cogswell, what I came here for. All right. And I'm going to have a Q&A session at the end, so if you have questions, please take notes. Happy to answer and discuss. So we built a platform, Cogswell, and as we were building it, we realized it was able to do lots and lots and handle so many different use cases, more than we could ever possibly imagine, more than I could imagine, because we wanted it to be generic so that it could serve our customers. And so we're like, hey, why not? Since we built it to be generic, we built it to be powerful, we built it to be robust, other people I'm sure could use it as well. So kind of our little tagline is simplifying IoT integration and communication, single deployment, infinite possibilities. All right, so we already kind of covered this, but we'll repeat it again because it's worth repeating. The path to value is collecting data, analyzing that data, and then taking some sort of action. If you're missing one of these three parts, then you don't have anything that's valuable. And ultimately, it's on the taking the action part that generates the money, whether that be detecting that some aircraft engine, it needs some sort of preventative maintenance a lot earlier than specified in the maintenance cycle, so that you can prevent an aircraft from crashing, killing hundreds of people in major lawsuits, or any other sort of action. It doesn't necessarily have to be preventative maintenance, preventing spoilage, or maybe generating leads for a marketing team, or anything along those lines. So everything really kind of fits into this. It doesn't necessarily have to be strictly IoT related that we traditionally think about. Everything's just all about collecting this data and taking action on it. So some of the highlights of Cogswell, missing a slide that I thought I had here. All right, so what I wanted to say is here in, where does Cogswell fit in this? Well, Cogswell actually does all three. We collect the data, we analyze it, and then we can take action on it. So we provide all that benefit, the platform that we have. So here's some highlights of Cogswell, and we'll dig down a little bit into this. So again, we designed it to be very much self-serve. Hopefully everyone, or some people are familiar with PubSub and how that works. And so maybe something that you haven't really thought about related to PubSub is segmentation. So we're getting a little bit more into what segmentation is and how cool this is and why it might be something that a lot of people could find really useful. That isn't necessarily commonly, from what I've looked around, part of PubSub systems. So again, we have this whole campaign concept, and that kind of got driven by our current customers. But of course, there's application out there for perhaps some of you guys or other companies. It has a rules engine, and that's where it does the analyzation and is determining as data comes in real time if some sort of action needs to be taken. We got the web console, so it's nice and easy to use, which we'll go into a little bit later. We have open source SDKs that anyone could go and download, and then you can integrate our SDKs into any of your IoT gateway devices to then push data up to Cogs, where you can then use your web console to set up your campaigns and your rules and decide what sort of action you want to take. Something I think is cool, I've looked around some of the IoT platforms out there. Personally, it always kind of drives me crazy when I go to someone's website and I can't figure out what their pricing model is or what they charge. So we've made our pricing transparent, and it's a pay-as-you-go model, so there's not a huge barrier to entry. Some companies, I feel, kind of take like an older pricing model where they charge like $200,000 or $300,000 up front, and you do things of that nature. So this is very easy to get into. Startups, or you got your own home project, or whatever it may be, you can get into this very easily. And in fact, as part of our beta, we have a very generous free tier that resets every month. So it's basically, if you don't use past the free tier, then effectively it's free for you to use for as long as you want, which I think is really cool. So with Cogs, we provide low latency messaging. So Cogs, the way when it takes action, it's generating a message that's defined by our end users and passing that along to some other device. Now, that message could be pushing data to some sort of BI visualization tool. That message could be sending sending some sort of command to one or more IoT devices, right? Shut a door, or turn on the alarm, or turn on some smoke system, or apply the brakes on a car, or something like that. And so that's how Cogs works, is via this messaging. And so we say anyone, anywhere, anytime. There's some caveats to that. Anyone who has our SDK integrated. Anywhere, I guess there's not too much caveat with that. Anytime, as long as they're connected to the internet, right? So that's how Cogs sends its messaging, is through the internet, or through some other protocols like APNS, but ultimately that goes through the internet. Any device to any device. So you can install our SDKs really anywhere, right? It could be a server, it could be an IoT gateway, it could be a mobile phone. Whatever you can imagine where our SDKs can go, then that's what you can do. So that's why we say any device to any device. And so we can handle this disparate system where you could use Cogs to communicate from IoT device to IoT device, or many different IoT devices to many different IoT devices. Or you can do IoT devices to mobile phones, or mobile phones, any combination you could possibly imagine, that's what it's able to do. Because we built all this, you don't have to build it yourself. So there's a lot of value in just bringing your product, bringing your ideas to market, so you don't have to worry about this sort of thing. Building something like this does take quite a bit of expertise and time. So just going over the different ways you can integrate Cogs, we have a REST API. So if one of the SDKs is in the technology that you plan on using, then you could just make a call to our REST APIs. That works just fine. You'll have to implement, sort of the communication layer that manages that yourself. We have JavaScript, Java, C#, Android, and Swift iOS SDKs right now. Dave?
Is there going to be a Python one?
We are going to be creating more SDKs as time goes on. That's the simple answer. So you got to start somewhere, and this is where we've started. So I believe integration is pretty simple. Frankly, as far as the code goes, it's just a few lines of code. You may have to do some things outside of the direct integration with Cogs, like some data transformation or things upon that nature to sort of get the data in the format that you want to send to Cogs. So not included in that time. So it's just a few lines of code to integrate the SDK, and then there's going to be some time getting into our web console and setting up your schema, setting up your campaign, setting up the rules, the sort of messages you want to deliver, maybe some segments. But I'd say it's all pretty doable in about an hour. More time may be needed for testing. We have some testing tools that should help out with that. So you guys are probably wondering, oh my gosh, another IoT platform. I've heard about these things. What about these guys? What about those guys? What's your differentiator? This is something I get asked all the time. Like, what differentiates you guys from the rest of these IoT platforms? So I'm going to go through that. And of course, some of the platforms you may even well be thinking of support some of these features, but in aggregate, do they all have what we have? I don't know of one to date yet that does. But if you do, then we can talk about it. So, custom schema. So the way that time series events is usually sent is via JSON, some sort of JSON structured format, and you have key value pairs. And so your key has a certain name, and there's a certain data type that's associated with that. This is called schema. You can think about it the same way as a schema from a database. So clearly, if you have some sort of sensor, or you're trying to aggregate and send lots of sensor data in, you're going to have some sort of data format, so you're going to be sending that data to Cogs in. And so with Cogs, you get to define that schema yourself. There's some platforms out there that require you to fit their schema, but ours is very adaptable. And so that means that you're not limited in what you can send to Cogs. You can send everything to Cogs that you're interested in. So that's a differentiation. I'd say that's probably the least, I've seen that's becoming more and more common amongst some of these platforms that I've seen. So not a huge one, but we're going to get into ones that are much better. So segmentation. I truly believe segmentation is one of the big powers of our platform and what it can do. So the way that it works, I'll go through a demo later where we can go through this, but the way that it works is you get to define some rules, and as data comes in live, we effectively build out these groups of devices, and this group of devices gets updated in real time. So some new data comes in that says, oh, this device is now in California, and you build a segment that says this segment is only my Texas devices, and previously it was in Texas, then it would get removed from that Texas segment as that data came in real time. And this is extremely powerful. There's a number of use cases where having this real-time segmentation concept can be very useful. So one of those is drones, right? So we've had some sort of kind of exploratory talks with some drone folks, and how can you apply segmentation? Well, you can apply segmentation via, for whatever reason my mind's facing it, geospatial coordinates.
GPS?
No, not GPS, gosh, I can't think of the name. What is it?
Geocache?
No, not geocache. Anyway, it's where you basically draw like a grid or boundary.
Geofencing.
There we go. Oh my gosh. All right. Yes. So with geofencing, right? So you could use geofencing to say, this is a no-fly zone. Maybe this is an airport, or maybe this is a military installation, or maybe it's a park and the city of San Francisco doesn't like you flying your drones in their parks for whatever reason, right? So you can define these geofenced locations, and then using live segmentation with Cogs, so you can define all these geofenced locations as segments, and then as drones are flying around passing their location data in, then you can know about whether that drone has become part of a segment or whether it left a segment. And now you could use these segments to target messaging to these devices. So maybe you want to send, maybe you have some sort of trigger that says, hey, after this device has become part of the segment, it's been part of it for 30 seconds, then I want to send everyone in the segment, or maybe I just want to send it to this one device, some sort of control command that tells it to turn around and leave the zone. All automated, requires no human interaction. That is really powerful. Sort of my dream, taking it to the next step that I think would be really awesome with this, is then you can use where you update these segments in real time. You can kind of have the segmentation concept around actual aircraft, like commercial aircraft, or helicopters that are flying to go into a fire situation where they need to drop off. And so using this live update, how all these segments are getting updated live, then you could then automatically redirect drones away from the incoming aircraft. Anyway, this is pretty cool stuff what you could do with this. So that's something I haven't seen. I've seen a couple platforms that have segments, but they're all statically defined, and you have to manually say, oh, I want this device in the segment, I want this device in the segment. They don't have any ability to update those segment groupings in real time based on the data that's coming in. There's some out there that do, but I haven't seen it. So I think that's extremely powerful, something that Cogs has. So some other differentiators are, when you look, and again, this kind of comes because we didn't build Cogs to be an IoT platform, but it just happens to fit the IoT use case very well, and that is message-oriented and custom messaging. So, our platform was designed to deliver these messages to our end users, to our customers' end users around content or whatever it may be. And so, because of that, we have pretty powerful messaging capabilities where you can tailor what these messages are, what the content of those messages are. We're not talking about sending a command to another IoT device. You can tailor that, right? Some of the platforms I've looked at, they just only take the event data that came in and then send it somewhere else, right? They don't. Maybe they do some aggregations or something like that, but we go a step further with our custom messaging capabilities. Another thing that's related that is really cool, but it fits naturally if you think about it, and that is something we call dynamic variable ingestion. So Cogs is aware of the state of every single device that has passed data in, what the last state that Cogs received, right? I mean, if you stop sending data, then we don't know what the current state is, but we know what the last state was that Cogs received. So when we're generating these messages, we have two sets of data. We have one, the event that triggered the rule that caused this message to be generated. So we have that device, or the event rather, but we know which device it came from. And then we also have, we also have the one or many different devices that are our intended recipients, right? I mean, it could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of devices, doesn't matter, right? We know the state of all those. And so when you're defining your segments, when you're defining your messaging, you could then refer to the most recent state from any of those devices. And so you could build out your message. The most common case I think of is from marketing type stuff, so I'm just going to use that. But you can send a message that says, hi, first name, last name, right? And even though this message, using PubSub and segmentation, we could go and deliver that to everyone in Texas. And it's because we know who each of those target devices are associated with, because you sent that data in Cogs, then of course we can replace those values at runtime, and then now we can personalize the message. You can also use this for maybe some sort of IoT, or you're triggering off some sort of sensor, and you need to pass some of that information, or only some set of information in some sort of command to a target IoT device. But let's say that event data that came in didn't contain that data, but Cogs knows what that state was previously, even if that was 4 months ago, right? The shutter lens opened 4 months ago. We know if it's open or not. Some platforms that I've seen out there, they do this very small windowing effect where data comes in and you only have access, or you can only window over that data over a short period of time. I'm jumping ahead a little bit here to the rules engine portion, but Cogs has access to all historical data. So we could do aggregations across historical data from 4 months ago. One example is sales within the last 3 months greater than 50,000. So you want to trigger if the sales from this particular device or from this particular individual over the last 3 months totals should be greater than 50,000, then you want to trigger some sort of marketing message to that device. So this kind of gives you sort of the capabilities that it has. So campaigns, campaign management, I haven't really seen this too much with some of the IoT platforms, this concept of how you build out these campaigns that have associated rules and then associated messages you want to deliver. Some of them may have it, but I haven't really seen it too much. So another cool thing about Cogs is these campaigns, and I'm going to hopefully demo it here if we have time, is you can change these campaign values and the rules associated with it, or even the message content associated with it, in real time, and it takes effect immediately. So the next set of events that come in real time, milliseconds later, then get evaluated differently according to how you change your campaign. So that is really cool. Some platforms do some sort of bulk loading thing. Maybe it takes effect overnight or something like that. Hopefully not. We have the technology to do this all in real time, like what Cogs does. And then, of course, we have the web console that's designed to be easy to use, kind of like the lowest common denominators. We wanted to make it so that marketing type people, like our existing customers, that they could use it, which is kind of a hard order to fulfill when you start to get into some stuff that's pretty technical, but we've certainly tried our best. So what are we going to be doing in the future? Our product just launched about 2 months ago. Beta got a small team of engineers. David was asking about Python. I'm sure some of you guys are like thinking about C or C++ or some other languages. How come you guys don't have these SDKs? And we have to start somewhere. We can't have everything all at once. Some of these IoT platforms have been around for years and years and years, and so of course they've they've got a lot of funding and things of that nature. So they're going to hire a bigger team, build out lots of features. So we're kind of really just getting started. So there's lots to do that we don't already do. So MQTT right now, Cogs just works primarily over HTTP as its transport protocol, but clearly MQTT, due to its low energy usage compared to HTTP, is preferred for IoT applications. Improving our rules engine and the different things you could do with the rules so that's more capable and flexible and able to basically handle any sort of situation you could potentially imagine. Machine learning. So how we can start to establish patterns and detect these sort of patterns and automatically build rules. So instead of our customers having to define rules, we can learn and automatically build those rules for our customers based upon the data that comes in using machine learning. And then there's lots and lots and lots of other stuff with Cogs that really need polishing because it's new and there's no end in sight with all the things that we need to do to make it better. So I already kind of covered some use cases, but we'll just cover some just in case people still have questions. So real-time fleet management, so you can use our segmentation capabilities to automatically inform your biomechanics. So say you have a fleet of semi-trucks and something breaks down or is imminently going to break down, you've detected all this through the data that you're sending in Cogs and you set up some sort of rules. Then using segmentation, we know where it is. It's now entered this region and these mechanics are the closest to it or something along those lines. So then we could automatically send out messages, SMS messages to inform the mechanics, or maybe some sort of message to whatever their dashboard or their controller is that they use to manage their mechanic deployment. So that's a great part, right? We just have the SDK. All you have to do is just integrate the SDK, and then we send the message, and you get to decide what you want to do with it. Automated emergency response. So maybe you have some sensors set up in some sort of manufacturing room that's detecting when humans are coming in and out. So we know the current state of that room and some sort of fires detected or something along those lines through some other sensors. So then we can send commands to shut doors or maybe activate the sprinklers or something along those lines. Smart city. A football game just got out, and that's outside the normal spec for how the city designed their trafficking system. So with sensors and with data, you could detect this sort of thing, feed it into Cogs. With rules set up, then we could potentially send messaging out to the individual lights that then alter the pre-programmed traffic patterns so that it'll now allow the traffic coming out of the football game to get through much faster. These are all pretty typical IoT scenarios. It's not really anything special. Maybe some of the segmentation stuff is. But you'll hear about this sort of stuff on standard IoT platforms. But the point is Cogs can do these sort of things, or at least you can use Cogs to accomplish this sort of use cases. So I don't know how we are on time. Let's just take a quick look. Okay, we're almost out of time. So we're going to do a quick demo. Now what I thought would have been awesome, although it takes some time, is to have a drone and then do live geofencing with the drone flying around and then me updating that. I think that would have been awesome. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find the time to do something like that. So what we did is had one of my developers write a simple Android app. He had never touched Android before in his life, and he spent 2 days building out this app. It's a simple piano app. But kind of the part behind the piano app is we have this pub sub idea. So you have different rooms that you could join, which are kind of pub sub channels, right? And so you could join a room, and then if someone's set to publish, then all the subscribers in that room will then get whatever keys are played by the publisher. So it's just a very simple kind of explanation of PubSub. If you're familiar with PubSub, that's not going to wow you or anything, but it's all over the internet, and it's from different devices. They're all connected to the internet. They're not connected to each other through Bluetooth or through any special software. All they're doing is they're just pumping these events to the cloud through our system and then pass it back down to the devices. What I'm going to do afterwards is, after we do a quick demo, and hopefully Wi-Fi is cooperative with us, we're not having any problems, is then I'm going to go into our web console, and I'm going to show you a campaign really quick, and we're going to make some changes to the campaign, maybe disable some of the keys, and then you'll see how it takes effect immediately live in real time. So Jerry's going to help me get set up, and then we're going to do that. So I'm going to put down the mic for just a little bit while we get everything connected. All right.
So
that you guys can see.
and we could give it to someone if someone wants to hold one. So I don't.
I'll send this.
So I don't have enough for everyone, but it's gonna kind of be hard for me to do it while holding the mic.
Oh, I can do it.
Okay, so anyway, they're all in the same room. So as she's pressing the keys, it's sending traffic over Wi-Fi up to the cloud, to our servers. All these events are getting evaluated in real time, then it's sending it out to.
Is yours doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yep. Of course, there's a little bit of latency involved because you're traveling vast distances over the internet, and these rules are getting, or these events are getting evaluated in real time. And then we have a campaign that says, hey, basically any message that comes in, any event that comes in, we want to push it out to the channel, to the PubSub channel for all the people who are subscribed to that channel. So that's how this works. If it takes more time, but there's room capability on here. So if I switch rooms, then as Jerry played, then we wouldn't see me get those notes. And we actually have it set up so multiple people can subscribe, or I'm sorry, publish. So if multiple people want to play at the same time, it handles all that. So this just kind of demonstrates simple PubSub, one-to-one or one-to-many communication. Now, what I'm going to go do is go jump into the web console and modify the campaign on the fly and disable some of the keys. So I'm going to put the mic down, or actually, I think you can probably manage it. All right, so, and if, I don't know how we are on time, if we have our time, I could go a little bit more thorough into our web console. For short on time, I'll just show you this part. But here's our web console, so you can log in. You can create API keys that you can use. You can set up your schema. And I got auto logged out. Hold on, let me fix this 1 second. That's because I have been sitting on the page for quite a while. All right, here we go. So, so here's the attributes that we have for this, for the events that we're sending from the piano app. So all we're doing is we're sending a channel, which is which room that the piano key is coming from, and then which key. So it's very simple, kind of obvious. But you're able to go and create and define your schema and what the different data types are, and how you're uniquely identifying a set of devices, and we're doing that based on the room. So that's how we're grouping these devices together. So let me go into the campaigns here. So here's our campaign. Here's when we started the campaign. We don't have a stop date, so it goes on for forever. It's currently active, so I'm going to go edit the campaign. We have a couple different steps here. So here's the name of the campaign. Cogs has the ability to delay message transmission. So if an event comes in and then it triggers one of your rules, but you don't want to send out the message right away, then you can delay the message that goes out to the target devices. And I'm sorry for the formatting. The screen's kind of shrunk here, but here's the message that we send out. And in this case, we're just sending the triggering event, so it contains the channel and what key got pressed, and that's going to all the target piano devices that are in the same room. obviously so that they know how to play that key, otherwise they won't know. But this part, so here you can define JSON payload, and using dynamic variable injection you can refer back to some of the schema that you defined, just using simple escape stuff. So we call, the format basically looks like this, pub dot, and then whatever the attribute name is, which of course you would substitute out. Of course I should probably make this proper JSON. But without going through this further, this is sort of the format where you can inject those values at runtime. So it's very easy. You don't just have to do it here on the JSON payload. You could drop it into a notification message that's going over SMS. You can drop it into some of these iOS specific attributes or GCM specific attributes. And so you could just drop this value really anywhere if you want. You could drop it into a URL. So you're saying, hey, here's the content that we want to get displayed on the screen, but then you could use query string, URL query strings to then substitute these values in and maybe pre-populate a form or something along those lines. Audience, whoops. All right, audience. So in this case, all we're doing is we're going to show it to whoever triggers this campaign, and anytime a trigger is detected. And since we're keyed basically off the channel, then it's just going to publish it to everyone inside of that channel. Here's our rules, and I know I'm going through this pretty quick. We're basically saying that we're going to trigger anytime this key value is present. So since we're always saying that key in, then we're always triggering the campaign. Jerry, do you want to just show again and just maybe hit it for a while? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this this rule, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say contains sharp. And I'm going to save it, save. Okay, and now what it should do is now she's hitting the white keys, and it's not playing the white keys because we said we're only going to trigger when an event comes in. That's the sharp key.
Yeah, I'm pressing the white key here.
And nothing's happening. So again, this just all took place in real time as you edited the campaign. And of course, same thing applies to audience. If you make a segment, you change it all in real time. It all happens instantly on the fly from that moment moving forward. So that's the short version of the demo, and I think it's probably a good place to end. Let me go back to the presentation. I am, 1 second here.
Does anybody else want it?
All right, so I'm kind of short on business cards. So if you are interested and want to contact me, maybe take a picture of this slide. I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have. We also, for those of you who use IRC, I like IRC being a developer guy. I used it for a long time before Google was around. So we have a Cogswell channel on Freenode, which is kind of the popular open source place. And of course, we've got some other social things. So any questions? Happy to take questions that people might have at this point. Yes, sir.
What's the range?
What do you mean? Oh, related to the switch and stuff like that.
I was figuring you should promote that, you know, you've got a much better range.
Oh, right, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so obviously over the internet, so you could have devices communicating on opposite ends of the world. And maybe if they get HTTP pushed up to shuttles and stuff like that, I imagine they're probably using HTTP for some of the shuttle stuff. So maybe even out of orbit, right? Out of Earth orbit. So
Have IP address will travel.
say what?
Have IP address will travel.
Yeah, exactly, right? Do you have an addressable device with IP address? Then yes, you can use Cogs.
I would assume you're IPv6 enabled.
Yes, we are. Yep.
Can you talk about the pricing?
Can we? Oh, yes, that's really good. Here, let me go to the website. So hold on a second. I'm going to try to type one-handed. Cogswell.io. So here's the site. You could go here. We have lots of documentation. Here's the different SDKs that we have, and all of our SDKs are open source. You could go onto GitHub. Let me just actually, I'll answer your question in just a second. While I'm thinking about it, I wanted to go here. So here I just went to our JavaScript SDK, and the like I said, the coding is very easy. So the main, although we have lots of different things you could call here on this, but the main thing that most people are going to do is they're going to send an event. So HTTP post event. And here's some example code. It's pretty simple to get it integrated. The main thing being right here, where we call the send event. And it takes the namespace, the event name, and all the different attributes that you want to send, and some tag functionality that we have. So some of this is kind of fluff, but the main thing is just effectively this one line. This is how you send an event to Cogs. Well, our SDKs wrap all the HTTP stuff that you would normally have to write, so you don't have to worry about any of that. So pretty simple, and then we have some methods for subscribing to channels and things like that. Effectively, it's pretty similar as well. So back to pricing. I guess we're gonna head back here. All right, cool. So pricing is basically looks like this, although it's getting wrapped kind of weird because my screen resolution again. But the first 100,000 events they send in Cogs, free. So you can do a lot with 100,000 events. You know, how many devices would you have to have sending in an event per day? You know, 100,000, or not 100,000, but divide that out by 30. But it's a fair amount. It's plenty more to do development. In fact, I imagine that even smaller companies with simpler use cases could use Cogs for free under this 100,000. And then our pricing, this pricing, just want to let everyone know, isn't finalized. This is just kind of something we threw up, and certainly happy to get more feedback if people think that this is maybe too expensive, maybe they have some bigger use cases in mind, something like that. This isn't completely set in stone, but this is sort of the model that we're going on. And then we have that for message delivery as well, so events that we receive. So basically we're just billing up based upon the inputs and the outputs. So events received, messages that we deliver. So this does not include undelivered messages. That's something I didn't talk about much, but we have some sort of queuing capability. So if devices that doesn't have to be online at that point in time, then we can queue up the messages and then deliver it. And then, I think I might have it in my slide, but one thing we don't have right now is integrated BI, and that's something we plan on doing. So for the time being, if people want to get to their data, whether that be events or the messages that we send, then they could just export that to CSV. And so again, since that's an output of the system, you know, the main driver of this, I'll let you know, is one of our existing customers. What they were doing is they were dumping the entire database every single day, gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of data, because we weren't charging them for it. So figured it's smart to do billing based on inputs, outputs. Anyway, it's like I said, it's all very generous. To answer your question, sir? Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How long do you store data?
Indefinitely. So if that's a problem for your use case, then, you know, granted we want to make this a generic platform, so we, down the road, we'll probably implement some sort of feature where we could auto-trim data. Obviously that's going to be less cost on us, so that's a good thing. But because of the nature of Cogs and with rules being able to access all historical data, do aggregations on that data, that's kind of a differentiator of our platform. Other platforms only store data for like a day or 7 days or something like that, right? They have this windowing capability, but Cogs does it indefinitely. And part of that's because we need to do that so that we know what the last state of the device is, right? You can send an event, you can have a big schema, but each event you send in only contains 1 or 2 attributes. But you send in these different attributes over a period of time. Since Cogs has access to all this historical data, we can tell you what the last state was for every single attribute as part of your schema.
Do you see yourself going to a space quota or something like that, or are you just going to be input output?
Say that one more time.
If you're going to store, you know, infinite number of data records for an infinite period of time, that's going to get expensive no matter where you're storing.
Right, I agree. So right now we're doing it indefinitely, but I imagine, you know, I don't know what platform does it indefinitely, but I imagine at some point there's going to be a point where we'll have to put a cap on that. So that'll to be determined.
Yeah.
But as of right now, it's.
I mean, you know, the Google was, you know, infinite mail, and now, you know, they're on a tiered quota system.
Sure. So we'll probably go to that at some point, and you know, maybe we can make exceptions for certain customers. They have some particular use case, and we can work something out, right? But that's where we're at right now. Yes, sir.
So if you're storing all the historical data, can I then do some sort of a query that says, give me the temperature for this sensor 3 days ago?
Yes, absolutely. Again, unfortunately, the resolution is really tiny, so it's hard to see. But if we go to my rules here, actually I don't have a date on this schema, so I can't actually show you. But anyway, we have features like that, like within the last 3 days. Go grab all the events within the last 3 days, and then you can do some sort of aggregation, find out what the average is, or count them up, or something like that. Or we have the ability to do ranges, so you can say, skip the last 40 days and then take the next 20 days or whatever, right? So, or if you want to pick a static date, you could do that. But with this sort of platform, static dates don't work too well. You always want to do relative, some kind of dates. But we do have a static date in there if for whatever reason you have that particular use case. Sir?
Is there any way to like get how many messages have gone through? So like, let's say I mess up my code, some message would show up and say, you just blew through 1 million messages.
Yes, so let's go here. So right here, here we can see we just have this usage that shows you all, and this is, again, all in real time. If I was sending tons of events and I hit refresh, then we'd see what it got updated to. We don't have alerts set up on this. We want to get alerts set up. That's a future feature. But right now it shows you what you've used and how much it costs. And since I've used under the free tier amount, then my cost is 0. But if you used over the free tier amount, then you'd have a charge. Now, we don't require credit cards, so you can use Cogs without putting in a credit card. But as soon as you pass one of the free tier thresholds, then we're just going to block any. You'll send events in, we'll reject it, right? If you hit your event sending in threshold. Yes.
Is that something you can set in your code? Like, don't go if I've done 1,000 messages, and the next one would make me pay, or maybe to slow down, like maybe don't send unimportant messages after this number.
So define unimportant, right? You have control over your campaigns. You get to control. You could change your campaign to say, I consider this important, and then that would take effect immediately. But to answer your question, like letting you know that's the alerting part that we want to add in. So then you can set up thresholds and say, hey, if I've burned through this many events within the last 5 minutes, and if it exceeds that threshold, then we send you a message. That's something we want to do, right? Sir?
You mentioned being able to do a query to pull records for specific search terms, right? I was interested in how you bill that.
On how we bill based upon the complexity. We had a lot of debate internally about that because clearly, this isn't magic behind the scenes. We use some big data technology that is very fast, so we can process this stuff very fast and handle millions of records, billions of records, in fact, is what we're designed to handle. And it's all very scalable based on the traffic that we receive. But surely, if you build a campaign with very complex rules that's trying to do certain operations, it is costly to us and it's going to take longer to evaluate that data coming in. But from a billing standpoint, that's really hard to try to explain to people, and billing usually needs to be simple. So if really the only impact you would have is if you design something that's incredibly complex, then your events might take a little bit longer to process than it would otherwise. Yes? All right. Any other questions? Sir?
What's the maximum events you can handle at the same time?
So our system's scalable. Let's see. I don't know. We were doing like just on what we currently have without scaling it up. We were doing like 100,000 a second or something like that. That's not bad without having to scale. I got time for 2 more questions. I think that's what Dave was going for. So you, sir, and there was someone up in the front row who might have had a question. All right.
So the logic that you would leverage based on the events, do we like build and put that in the web app, or will we still just, after we grab the data from you, we would have to build a logic around it?
So for triggering when we generate messages, that's all in the web app. So you just use our UI that you saw to build out your rules. Excuse me. And it has operators, right? Less than, greater than, contains, is in the state range. We have all these operators, and you get to specify the values. And since you have to define your schema in Cogs so that we're schema aware, then obviously we can do validation on, this is an integer field, so we know what sort of operators you want to apply to an integer. Like you want to take an average. It doesn't make any sense to do average of string fields, right? So Cogs is all aware of this sort of thing, and the UI is all built around. It's going to show you the operators that are applicable to whatever your attribute type is. One feature that we would like to do down the road is make it so that if for whatever reason, we hope the UI can handle all use cases, but if you feel like you need to do some custom coding because your situation is incredibly complex, we want to add the ability for our users to put JavaScript in, and then we'll process that JavaScript code as part of the rule evaluation when events come in real time, and the JavaScript code will evaluate to 1 or 0, which it passes or it doesn't pass. One other question somewhere over here I thought someone had. Yes, sir.
Touch a little on security?
Say what?
Can you touch a little on security?
Sure. So, it's kind of a big one that I've received questions about before. We use API keys and related keys. So we have the ability where you can generate what we call client keys that are unique to each device. And let's say someone's hacked one of your devices or abusing it or something like that, cost you a lot of money, then you could just go disable that individual unique device key without affecting the rest of your device population. So this is all done through cryptology via related keys. As far as transport security, we use HTTPS, and we only use the ciphers. Like there's a set of ciphers that are strong ciphers that you want to use. There's a set of ciphers that are older, weaker ones that are weak and vulnerable, and so we don't allow that. Currently, Cogs does not support the weaker ciphers. That could potentially cause a problem for some people, so we'll see as time goes on whether we need to make some special exceptions to that, but right now it's pretty stringent on what ciphers we do use for HTTPS transport communication. Someone asked me, one of the people I've spoken to was asking about not just transport encryption, but full message encryption. So the problem with that, I haven't thought about it a lot, and this has been received in one of my senior engineers who I often talk about these problems with was out on vacation. So I'll be talking about it with him soon. But one of the problems is if the message itself and the contents itself is encrypted, and Cogs itself can't unencrypt it, then there's no way we can evaluate it and do any sort of triggering or evaluation of the data, right? So, no matter how you want to cut it, if Cogs is going to be triggering, we have to have access to the raw data. So maybe we could, if someone was super concerned, maybe we can implement some sort of, it gets encrypted pre-transport, HTTPS transport via our SDK, and then it gets sent over, transport over the internet, when it gets encrypted again via SSL. And then when it gets on Cogs side, then it gets de-encrypted via HTTP, and then somewhere internally on Cogs, then we would obviously have to have the matching key to unencrypt it and then to do the data processing. And then we could then store it in our database encrypted, right? But then, of course, if we pull it out of the database, it's encrypted, and we're trying to do all this stuff in real time, right? Someone's query or rule that they wrote might pull back 100,000 records, or 200,000, or 1,000,000 records that we have to go process, right? If they're all encrypted, then we all have to de-encrypt all of them, and of course that adds latency and processing time. So we don't have that now. If we have a customer who that's a big thing for, here's the great thing. We're a small company, we have a lot of flexibility. If someone comes to us and they have a certain use case, they're going to give us a lot of business, we can be really flexible for accommodating whatever their particular use case is. So, all right, I think that's it. So I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for having me out here. It was good questions. Really appreciate it. And again, I don't have the slide up, but hopefully you all took a picture of my contact info. Today we just pushed live chat to our website, so you can talk to any of our engineers there. All right, thanks everyone.